So for module 4, the title of the module is The Social Construction of Gender Relations, Sociological and Feminist Perspective. Now, let's discuss for what is the view of gender in a society. Now, sex are the biological traits that societies use to assign people into either a male or a female, whether it be through the genitalia or the external genitalia. On the other hand, gender examines how society influences our understanding and perception of differences between masculinity and femininity. Gender is also considered as a concept that describes how societies determine and manage sex categories, the cultural meaning attached to men and women's role, and how individuals understand their identities not limited to one gender position. Now, in connection to sex and gender is what we call as sexuality. Now, sexuality is about the sexual attraction, sexual practices, and identity. It is asexuality. Now, asexuality is a term used when individuals do not feel sexual attraction. Some asexual people might still form romantic relationship without sexual contact. Now, in addition to this terminology is the different view of gender is the type of gender identities. So this part has been discussed last week. So first one is the cisgender. Now, cisgender describe people whose biological body they were born into matches their personal gender identity, or their assigned sex at birth is aligned with their gender preferences or identity. Transgender on the other hand is refers to the people who will undergo a gender transition that may involve changing their dress and self-presentation. Now, the third one is the intersexuality. Now, this describes variations in sex definitions related to ambiguous genitalia, sex organs, chromosomes, or hormones. Lastly, people can also choose to be genderqueer by either drawing on several gender positions or otherwise not identifying with any specific gender or non-binary. Or they may choose to move across gender fluid, or they may reject gender categories altogether or a gender. Now, the third gender, which is agender, is often used by social scientists to describe cultures that accept the non-binary gender positions. Now, always remember, guys, that gender and sexuality are not just personal identities, but they are also social identities. Why? Because they arise from our relationships to other people, and they depend upon social interaction and social recognition. Now, connected to gender and sex is what we call gender roles. Now, gender roles are based on the different expectations that individuals, groups, and societies have of individuals based on their sex and based on each society's values, beliefs about gender. Gender roles are the product of the interaction between individuals and their environments, and they give individual cues about what sort of behavior is believed to be appropriate for what sex. Now, understanding of the term gender is a social term that is often confused with the term sex. Now, always remember, sex is a biological concept determined on the basis of individuals' primary sex characteristic, while gender refers to the meanings, values, and characteristics that people ascribe to different sexes. Now, as per definition, gender roles are the roles that men and women are expected to occupy based on their sex. Therefore, the traditional view of the feminine gender role prescribes that women should behave in ways that are nurturing. On the other hand, the traditional view of the masculine gender role, therefore, suggests that men should be the heads of their household by providing financially for the family and making important decisions. Now, in connection to gender role, there are different perspectives about this aspect. So, first, now an ecological perspective on gender roles suggests that gender roles are created by the interactions between individuals, communities, and their environment. Now, the biological perspective on gender roles suggests that women have a natural affinity toward the feminine gender role and that men have a natural affinity toward the masculine gender role. Now, the third perspective is sociological perspective toward gender roles suggests that masculine and feminine roles are learned and that masculine and feminine gender roles are not necessarily connected to males and females' biological traits. And the last one is feminist perspective on gender roles might assert that because gender roles are learned, they can also be unlearned and that new and different roles can be created. Now, in addition to gender roles is the different gender stereotypes. Now, a stereotype is a widely accepted judgment or bias about a person or group. Stereotypes about gender can cause unequal and unfair treatment because of a person's gender, and this is what we call sexism. Now, there are four basic kinds of gender stereotyping or stereotypes. Number one, personality traits. For example, women are often expected to be accommodating and emotional, while men are usually expected to be self-confident and aggressive. Now, the next kind of stereotype is the domestic behaviors. Now, for example, some people expect that women will take care of the children, cook and clean the home, while men take care of the finances, work on the car, and do the home repairs. Third is occupations. Now, some people are quick to assume that teacher and nurses are women and that pilots, doctors, engineers are men. And the last stereotyping is physical appearance. For example, women are expected to be thin and graceful, while men are expected to be tall and masculine. Now, men and women are also expected to dress and groom in ways that are stereotypical to their gender. Men wearing pants and short hairstyle, and women wearing dresses and makeup. Now, in addition to this stereotyping, we have what we call the hyperfemininity. Now, hyperfemininity is the exaggeration of stereotype behavior that's believed to be feminine. Now, hyperfeminine folks exaggerate the qualities they believe to be feminine. This may include being passive, naive, sexually inexperienced, soft, flirtatious, graceful, nurturing, and accepting. Now, in addition is the hypermasculinity. Now, hypermasculinity is the exaggeration of the stereotype behavior that's believed to be masculine. Now, they believe they are supposed to compete with other men, dominate feminine folks by being aggressive, worldly, sexually experienced, insensitive, physically imposing, ambitious, and demanding. Now, relative to masculinity is, or the hypermasculinity is what we call machoism. Now, machismo is based on biological, historical, cultural, psychosocial, and interpersonal traits or behaviors. Some of the well-known traits are posturing, assume asserting, often unusual or exaggerated body posture or attitude. And the last one class is feminism. Now, feminism is the belief in social, economic, and political equality of the sexes, Although largely originating in the West, feminism is manifested worldwide and is represented by various institutions committed to activity on behalf of women's rights and interests.